Good morning and welcome to Wake Up with the Consciousness Café. My name is Lisa Ferraro. I'm the founder of SoulCall Global. And this morning, I am so thrilled to share two powerful women with the biggest hearts and know-how to ignite consciousness and hearts to make some real changes. This morning, we invite Linda Schuler, who's the former parade chair and volunteer coordinator from Stonewall, and the former executive director, Karla Rothan. Ladies, welcome.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. We're happy to
Uh,
be here with you.
oh man, when I moved here from California, when we were doing our research to move from San Francisco, California to Columbus, Ohio, one of the things that we were astounded by was the number of people who participate in the Pride parades in Columbus, Ohio. And I know that tell us a little bit of how you got involved with Pride in Columbus and what it was like in the beginnings, and some of the things that you had to do. And whomever wants to field these questions,
Well, when we met, we've been together for
Oh,
25
that's right.
years,
Yeah.
and
congratulations.
we got married in 2018 after it was legal, and it took us a minute to plan it, but we did get married in 18, but we've been together a long time. And when I first met Linda, I met her in May. May 2nd was our get together anniversary. And but June was right around the corner, right? So Pride was coming up, and I said to Linda, I said, you march in Pride, don't you? We're going to go down to the Pride parade in March. Let's go down to the Pride parade. Very excited. I was 31 years old, and I had marched many times before, so wanted to share it with her. Now I'll turn it over to her, and you'll see the look on her face now is a little different, but back then it was kind of like, what? So go ahead,
Well,
Linda.
actually, she said, can we go down and watch the Pride Parade? I said, oh, yeah, Judy and Pia, we'll all go down. We go every year. It's great. We love it. So then we get down there, and it used to be at the end, you could fall in behind and march. And she goes, and now we march. And we went, no, we watch. We watch we don't march. No, no. And she goes, well, are you going to be fired? And they had just passed an ordinance in the city, and as city workers, we couldn't be fired. And I go like, no. And Judy goes, no. And so she goes, well, then we're marching, and off we went, and all three of our friend P and the three of us, our eyes were like this big because
Wow.
we never marched in the Pride Parade before. That was 1996.
Wow.
And
Our families were very, very supportive of us. And I said, well, you're not going to lose your family either. And so really what we're doing, Linda, is we're marching for those that can't. And there are so many people at that time in our history that were losing their jobs, especially teachers,
Right.
and anyone that worked with children. They would lose their position if they were seen at a pride parade. So, and families would disown people. So you march for them because they can't. And she was like, "Oh, okay." Then that kind of turned her head a little bit and talked her into it a bit. But then she became the parade chair. So it took very quickly, and she soon started to volunteer and work very hard. So I'll let her tell that story because that's pretty impressive too.
well, we were sitting in one of our local wonderful, gay establishments, and we had, especially then, a lot of really great women's and men's bars, but we were in the old Union Station, and the poor guy that was putting Pride together came up to us and he said, oh my God, Linda and Karla, the entire parade committee has quit. And that happens with volunteers sometimes. And I don't know what I'm going to do. And I thought he said, will you help us? And so the next morning, Karla goes, oh my goodness, you volunteered us to be the chairs of Pride, and how are we going to do that? And I guess I did. I had a couple of wonderful drinks, and apparently hit my chair back and said, I love a parade and we'll do it. And we didn't know how we were going to do it because everyone was mad and they didn't want to tell us. But luckily, we both had done a lot of theater, a lot of special vids, lots of productions. So we just thought, well, it's one of those moments when you have to say yes because it's you. It's like, well, who else is going to do it?
Right.
And so we said yes. And but luckily there were only around 200 people. And so it wasn't so hard to figure out what to do. But as Karla said, in the 200 people, there are wonderful gay establishments, some of our great out gay leaders, but there were no politicians, there were no churches, and no one was marching with their work people. So it was a wonderful moment, but it was a beginning moment, and then Karla came on board, and we
Well, we did that so we chaired it until, well, she chaired the whole thing from 1997 to 2019.
Wow.
Yeah.
What's amazing
Long time.
about this story, what I appreciate in listening, going back to the beginnings, is for the people listening out there, if you're the one standing there saying, how can I do that? It's just taking that first step, just like in the parade, one foot in front of the other, saying yes. When the thing comes right to you, you feel it, you didn't know exactly how you were going to do it, but you knew you could do it. And just taking one small step and going from 200 people in 1996, 97 to 1 million did not happen overnight. I think some people sometimes see that. We know it started somewhere, but when you think of 200 to 1 million, and if I'm not mistaken, is Columbus the second largest pride parade in the country?
We believe so. Chicago, second largest pride in the Midwest. So second only to Chicago. But then Chicago kind of changed a little bit. They got so big that they had a lot of restrictions as far as how many they could have, how many parade entries they could have. And our city has never given us any restrictions on numbers. So and it's really hard to count people, right? I mean, but we estimate that it is as big as Red, White, and Boom at some moments of the weekend. And so we think it's close to 1 million people come. And every hotel's filled, every establishment, every restaurant, every nonprofit center, we're all filled with people that are coming to Columbus to celebrate and to fight for our civil rights. It's a parade and a march. It's a march, also a civil rights march.
How did you use your position to help people to understand or to share or bridge the gap, so to speak, between equal rights, human rights, or all of our rights? And today you walk for me, next time I walk for you. How do you make that click in the consciousness of close to 1 million people to walk with people? I know it's love and connection and relationship. Well, we can say words like relationship, but then there's got to be some steady exposure to a positive realization that we're all just people who want to love each other. How did you carefully construct that?
Well, one thing that we did later in my tenure there, I was there for 12 years. I'm the 9th director of Stonewall Columbus. After 40 years, there are 11 directors now. So I'm number 9. But what we instituted was a policy that said that if you did not have a non-discrimination policy with your corporation or business, whether it's large or small or group, even if it's a nonprofit group, if you did not have a non-discrimination policy that included sexual orientation and gender identity and expression in the non-discrimination clause, then you were not able to march. And so we had just started to institute that. We gave them several years to be able to develop that policy because we know things don't happen overnight, but they pledged to do it. And we made them pledge in writing to do that. So that was very instrumental. And I think it was a key to helping people to understand what you're saying, that you're not just getting an advertisement in front of 1 million people today. You're pledging to have pride all year long and to not discriminate against anyone in your organization, knowingly discriminate against them with regards to policy, at least, and protections under the law. So even though we are not protected in the state of Ohio with regards to employment or housing, which is unbelievable still to this day, we had that ability to at least do that for the Pride celebration and for the march. So.
Yeah. Do we see anything coming with regard to changing legislation in Ohio around these issues? We start working from the inside out, it seems like. How close? That's hard to say, but like.
It is hard to say. We've been working on it for so long. It just seems, I'd never in a million years thought we would get marriage equality
Yeah.
before we would get non-discrimination employment and housing in Ohio. I just never dreamed that. So, and we didn't get it by the state. We got it by the federal government. So
Yes.
states' rights, right? State by state by state. But we had a Obergefell, and of course Windsor did it for us. And
Right.
their work cannot be denied. It's the greatest work ever. And putting themselves out there to make change was amazing.
Yeah. It seems like, again, when something like that happens, sometimes it gives people permission to really voice their opinion where they might have been holding back.
Mhm.
When it goes to the law, people can celebrate, and other people will see people celebrating instead of. I think what I'm trying to say is it feels like it frees people to express how supportive they really are and have been. Sometimes they just need a little lift.
Well,
And
most people don't believe you when you tell them. Do you know that you can be fired in the state of Ohio for being an out gay, lesbian, bisexual, transgender person?
yeah.
They're like, no way, you're kidding me. Especially our young ones, you're kidding me. And
Mhm.
I'm like, so my young ones don't even remember when we couldn't get married.
Yeah.
My nieces and nephews, they're like, when could people not get married? When was that? That
Yeah.
you and Aunt Linda wouldn't be able to get married? So it's just it's time, right? So
Yeah.
it's just
Yeah.
the
So
arc of
we're listening, and you're sharing so many monumental, incremental, monumental things, of the many things that you have achieved and made lives better for many people in Ohio. All of us owe you a debt of gratitude, and the people who continue to do the work, and the countless volunteers. What would be one or two of the accomplishments you're most proud of, or most you feel are most significant?
Well, I want to say that every pride moved me, and Karla will say this too, because there are people there that it's their first pride. There are people there that um, are there with their families, and to have it come from uh, 1997 with so few people and everyone being so nervous. And even before that, people marched with bags on their heads in the parades before, and the young people that did that. For me in 2019, it and now it is always going to be a march until everyone, all our transgender folk, everyone around the world, everyone has all their rights. It's still a march, but it is a celebration. And it was such a celebration in 2018. And the electricity on that street, because I line it up and then I step it off and then I run up and down it to try to keep it all together. And just the people that were there. And there were there was a little group of middle school, but non-binary kids, and they had a little sign that said whatever their school was, homecoming queen, and they looked scared to death. Their little eyes were so big, and we ran over to their little cart and goes, and we started throwing kisses at them and clapping, and they stood up, and it was just such a moment. And children were there with their families on the street, and the whole city came out to I don't want to cry, but the whole city was out there. Everybody was out there from, every socioeconomic group, and it was just a very mixed crowd, and everyone was out there supporting the LGBTQIA community. It was just a fabulous experience, and that brought it all together for me, I think.
Yeah.
And then probably for me, the greatest accomplishment was, and I can't take credit for it, all of it. Halfway through our tenure, we put together the steering committee for the capital campaign to build the building. So we had purchased, in 2002, we had purchased the corner of 4th and High in the Short North, old bank building that we had rented for many years, and then a warehouse behind it, old addressograph warehouse. And we had purchased that in 2002 with not a lot of income. And so we were struggling to pay for it. And some community members, Mary Jo Hudson and Tom Grody, came to me and said, what are you going to do with those buildings? And I said, well, I'd like to renovate them, but I don't have the money. So they put together the team of about 12 people to steer the campaign, and then 300 people gave the gifts of their lifetimes to that building over a 5-year period. And $3.8 million was raised. It's an architecturally significant building now. It just won an architectural award in the Short North from the Short North Business Alliance. And it is a beacon of justice. It's a beacon of light and a beacon of safety for all of our community. And I really believe that buildings, in COVID, we learned what the buildings really aren't that important, right? We don't need offices, and we don't need that anymore. We can work from anywhere, right? But when you're an LGBTQIA person and you're walking down the street, and maybe you go to the Ohio State University, and you're a freshman, and you go walking through the Short North, and you walk and you look to the east, and you're like, there's a beacon of light, a big building dedicated to my community.
Right.
I'm home. I'm in the right city for me, because there aren't a lot of cities that have their own community center that has programs and services that are specific for us and our families. There isn't one in every city. And so it is a treasure. And I think it's our community's greatest accomplishment that we were able to build that and have it there for all time.
Congratulations. That is quite an astounding statement. That's impressive and amazing. And I'm getting chills just talking with you, just hearing all of these things, because like you said, it's a beacon of light that will be there generations to come, and still matter. The relevance of what you have done is it just continues. It just keeps going on. So, and people like to say things like, and I mean this sincerely, we stand on the shoulders of people like yourselves who've made this community so strong.
Well,
and
we
vital.
stood on the
Yes.
shoulders.
Yeah.
We stood on the shoulders of the 3 founders of that organization, and also, Rhonda Rivera and Doug Whaley, who were instrumental in even getting any of our organizations up and running in this community, even before we had office space, and we were all just volunteers, and nobody was getting any payment for it or money. It was all volunteer boards and service. And so we stood on their shoulders. So we knew, and I certainly knew when I took that job, it was a long history of greatness that I stood in front of, and I answered to them. They're all still alive, and I answer to them every day. So I remember it.
Yeah. What can you say in closing? What would you like to offer the people watching, and how can they take one small step toward being more of a vital, bringing more light to the community? Just one small thing we can all do.
Well, I just won an award for volunteerism, and
Congratulations.
and it meant a lot to me, because it's so important to volunteer. And sometimes people hesitate, like, well, what could I possibly bring to it? I mean, it's like Karla and I, what could we possibly bring to it? And then it just comes forward and it grows. And so a little part of what I said was, let's dream together. Let's dream together of a better community. And in dreaming, we'll start doing, and in doing, we'll take small steps. And those small steps will make a difference. So never feel that your contribution is too small. Those small steps, that's what gets us to the finish line. That's what changes the world. So it doesn't have to be big steps. You don't have to, you don't have to be the most talented person to make a difference. And so just say yes. Just go out there and start volunteering and try and make a difference. And those little steps will get you to the end of the line, and you can do great things.
I would say to be kind when you're doing it.
Yes.
And we're not always going to agree on how to get the end result. And there's a lot of different paths to success. It's a maze. It's not a straight line from one to the other. And all of our voices need to be heard. But those voices need to be kind voices, not shaming voices, not negative voices. They need to stay positive and within the spirit of love, which is really what it's all about anyway.
Yeah. Thank
It
you.
is about uplifting each other, and it's
Right.
okay to say, because many times there is a lot of criticism of our leaders. So it's
Oh,
okay to
sure.
say, I don't agree with that, but we want to uplift and work together and make change together. And I
Yeah.
think that be kind is so important.
That's such a vital, that's an important piece. The Monday morning quarterback, and everybody talks about that. It's easy to sit in an armchair and make judgments when you're not in the thick of it. You don't know what's at play. And to give people the benefit of the doubt, they're always doing the best they can with what is on the table. Sometimes we can't see what it is, but you two have certainly done that, and to a great success. And we thank you both, Karla Rothan and Linda Schuler. Thank you both for joining us on Wake Up with the Consciousness Cafe, two bright lights in Columbus and an example that just keep rippling out. Thank you both for being with us this morning.
Thank you, Lisa.
And thank you for joining us this morning. And wherever you are on the planet, remember that you are loved. Peace and blessings.